Now, one of the important pillars of basic education provision is the National School Nutrition Program. And as you heard there, some of the concerns are, like in the province of Gauteng and elsewhere, would some of these shortfalls come out of the pocket of the nutrition program? But significant to the endeavour of the school nutrition program is the role of thousands of volunteers who make food preparation and the serving of that food a reality. The Labour Research Service works with the volunteer food handlers, and they are raising important concerns this morning about how they are treated. Let's find out more with Zanela Chakela, who is the communication coordinator with the LRS. Zanela, good morning to you. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. You've been working with the volunteers, and I think a good place to start is to share with us what their work encompasses.
Thank you, Iman, and thank you so much for granting us the time to hear the plight of the volunteer food handlers. So volunteer food handlers are a group of women workers who, primarily work within the National School Nutrition Program. Jointly, there's about 60,000 of them, or a bit more than 60,000, and together they prepare and serve meals to more than 9 million children every school day in quintile 1 and 2 schools. We've been working as the Labour Research Service with them because one of our primary focuses is supporting women who work in precarious forms of work as well as care workers. Volunteer food handlers fall within those two areas. They're care workers and they also work in precarious forms of work. In the past 3.5 years, we've worked with them and we've learned that they have, they go through a lot of systemic inequality. For example, they are employed by the Department of Education, but they are seen as volunteers, which lies in the name, volunteer food handlers. However, their conditions are, the opposite of that, because what they do is that they actually are governed by contracts that they have to sign and adhere by, which stipulate working hours and, basically how they have to carry out their duties. Some of them work more than 6 hours a day. And yet they only paid a stipend and not seen as workers whatsoever. We feel that volunteer food handlers are the heart and hands of the National School Nutrition Program, because without them, the program can't be implemented. We've heard of issues where volunteer food handlers are not even properly trained and given the training that they need in order to prepare meals. And we believe that this is because the role that they play in schools is seen as an extension of the role that they play at home as women and as mothers. So you're just expected to know how to cook, expected to know how to care. And so this contributes to the undervaluing and underpaying and the lack of recognition of their roles. So, yes. Yeah.
I just want to come to the understanding, before we go ahead, Zanele, on the definition of what they provide. So you're saying they are volunteers, but even as volunteers, there is a contract in place which govern, how they are supposed to work, and then that's accompanied by a stipend. Given their output, though, they should be recognized as proper contract workers and remunerated as such. Is that a clear understanding of what you're sharing with us?
Absolutely. And we've consulted with labour practitioners as well as legal practitioners who have stated that according to the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, as well as the Labour Relations Act, the conditions that they work under and the stipulations, the guidelines that they are given, basically say that they are unequivocally workers and they should be seen as workers and not volunteers. So we now know that their rights are being violated. And on a day-to-day basis, we've heard horror stories of how volunteer food handlers have to, if they have to take time off work for illness or even maternity leave, they have to find their own replacements and pay those replacements out of the measly stipend that they receive from the Department of Education. So there's many problems that exist that disenfranchise the volunteer food handlers. Yeah.
Talk to us about the Extended Public Works Program, because my understanding is this is where they originate from. This is what makes up their ranks. Just tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, so the Government Extended Public Works Program, or the EPWP for short, is a program that, was conceptualized to employ people to basically create employment for people who are unemployed, and there's a social sector. There's different sectors within the EPWP that cover different areas of work that need to be done under the government, and there's a social sector, which is where the volunteer food handlers fall under, and this involves them being part of the National School Nutrition Program. Yeah.
Okay, wow. And, the role they play is key. They are out there combating malnutrition. And one of the other things that you're concerned about is, given the amount of money they take home, the commitment that they're making, what they face themselves is the prospect of poverty and malnourishment. This is an ironic outcome then.
Absolutely, because if you think about it, when we started working with them around 3.5 years ago, they were receiving a stipend of around 1,700 Rand, which hardly covers their expenses. They are mothers, and how they get the job is that they're given a letter that comes home with their children in schools. That says, if your mother's not working, let her come and volunteer. So, because they're seen as mothers who are volunteering, it's like the government is doing them a favor to say, you know what, we're just going to give you a little something so that you can get by. But we know that the volunteer food handlers face extreme poverty and, hunger and malnutrition even within their own homes, because they don't even have access to the food that they cook in schools. So, they can't take any of it home, meaning that with the 1.7, it's extended now to 2,100 after a few interventions, but it's still not enough. It's way below the minimum wage. And volunteer food handlers have expressed that they would like to receive at least the minimum wage, but a living wage, something that can enable them to carry out their duties as headers of homes, as well as people who are aspirant and people who want to work, and also just to be recognized for the value of the work that they do, which is quite it's not easy. It's not a natural extension of, you don't just wake up knowing how to cook. It's very technical, and children's lives depend on it, so they would like to be recognized and remunerated as such.
It just sounds like not a lot of thought has been given to the actual framework under which the National School Nutrition Program functions and works. As you say, there are a lot of assumptions made about the skills that those who are required to discharge the program have themselves. The cynical among us might say, Zanele, look, it's a volunteer program. They knew what they were getting themselves into. This is the stipend, that was allocated. So they went in eyes wide open. Why are they complaining now? How would you counter that?
The thing about it is that we know that we are facing very large statistics, or staggering statistics in our country, where most people are unemployed. So we feel that the government is taking advantage of this, because if you tell somebody who has no form of work and who has no form of income that they can help out, and be given a stipend, they will obviously respond to that, and will be grateful for it. But we also know that our constitution states that people's rights need to be recognized. So basically, if you're saying that somebody is a volunteer, you can't give them a contract that stipulates how many hours they should work, basically tells them how to carry out their duty. Whereas if you're a volunteer, you should technically be able to turn up whenever you like, because you're volunteering your time. So we're saying that the government is taking advantage of the fact that these women are vulnerable, and yeah, it's quite unacceptable. Yeah,
we'll continue to watch this one and see whether these provisions will be tightened up, but also whether some of the demands that you're placing on the table, very real ones, will be listened to and then factored into the way this framework develops. Thank you for talking to us and shedding light on this story. Zanela Chakela is the communications coordinator for the Labour Research Service, who is working with the volunteer food handlers.